Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The Daily Ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Total Recall, directed by Paul Verhoeven, The Big Lebowski by Joel and Ethan Coen, Everything Everywhere All at Once by Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, The Northman by Robert Eggers, and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, directed by Tom Gormican. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Thomas, how's it going?
It's going good, buddy. How was your week of movies, Vin?
Oh, week was, man.
It seemed like a pretty good week.
It was a great week. Very, very solid movies, and just back from the depths of hell of the last couple weeks. You know,
it was a tough couple weeks for you. We only had 2 movies above 50, I think.
yeah, and just like I mean, it was a fun idea to watch. Filling out the lows, like we.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. But it was just nice to get back to something that I wanted to kind of rave about. I wanted to kind of go into and unpack what I thought was good with it. And almost every one of these films really are top performing. So very happy to go into these this week.
Yeah, it's a very good list. Definitely think we'll have some heavy hitters here and a couple ones that I'm excited for. And 3 new movies too, which is rare. I mean, usually we have 1, maybe 2.
Yeah.
So 3 like literally in theaters now films, which is great. We're going to start with, we're kind of on a Paul Verhoeven kick, which the first movie we did was RoboCop, which was didn't live up to its reputation as far as we're concerned. But this is 1990. This is Total Recall, directed by Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah.
What do we have with this?
So we got lost there for a minute, and we are back on the Verhoeven train. Again, just as a reminder, because that was now 3 podcasts ago that we covered RoboCop. The idea here is to cover Verhoeven's work from RoboCop to Starship Troopers. It's a 5-movie stretch that has some really iconic works, and Verhoeven is a director that I like a lot. I like his style that's in there, and trying to unpack that a little bit. Total Recall definitely has a lot of style. This movie is a story inspired by Philip K. Dick, which is, in case you don't know, a very prolific sci-fi author. Of course, Android's Dream of Electric Sheep is the inspiration for Blade Runner. I actually forget what this story is titled, but a lot of the times his short stories will be then expanded upon for full movie releases, and Total Recall is definitely one of them.
Oh, okay, all right.
Which is, for me, a recipe for success as far as sci-fi is considered, or as far as sci-fi is concerned. Douglas Quaid is played by Arnie himself.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, yes, sir.
Milk is for baby. I drink beer. He is an average man in the year 2084. He works in construction. He has an absolute smoke show of a wife played by Sharon Stone.
She's so beautiful. It's crazy.
Oh my God.
She's crazy beautiful.
I know. But something doesn't feel quite right for Arnie, for Quaid. You see, his life is being manipulated from the shadows, really mentally, socially, and probably most importantly, emotionally. Quaid is being gaslit into something he's not. And this kind of social engineering, this manipulation is really the root and what I love the most about this film, because it is filled with twists and turns and really creates a unique story that even in a modern watch is, through me, I've seen this film before.
Yeah.
And it was still kind of throwing some twists and turns towards my way.
Oh, good.
Or
That's
at least
good.
appreciation even on additional additional watches.
Yeah, it's holding up too. It's good. That's good that it's holding up.
Exactly. As far as what Arnie is giving you one of the best rated R sci-fi action films you can watch. This is a phenomenal movie.
Really?
I really do love Total Recall. It is a top-notch experience. First half of this film is just absolutely dynamite. So many twists and turns that keep this story unique. I really don't want to go in. I mean, even, at minute 30, we get the full reveal of what this story is about, but there's just such a incredible enjoyment that if you have not seen Total Recall, really go into this blind. It's getting a very good recommendation from me, or at least a solid recommendation from me.
Okay.
And I don't want to go into much more of the story for that reason. If I could talk about some of the story structure, I would say, unfortunately, the second half kind of hits more of a generic, kind of straightforward story, but the combination of these two sides is really my point in what I want to come across with this film for Total Recall, the original, that is. There is a remake later on in the 2010s, that I think with Colin Farrell, right? Something like that.
Okay.
That was around like when they remade Dread and...
it was one of those.
It was one of those.
I forget. Was it Colin Farrell?
I think they remade RoboCop around the time too.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, RoboCop. Yeah.
Just scraping the barrel. For a modern watching, I think these twists and turns are why this movie stands apart from the massive amount of sci-fi 80s action and even the massive amount of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies you could be watching from this era.
Right. Yeah, this is like heavy time for him. This is big. I mean, he is one of the biggest stars at the time.
Yeah, if I'm correct, this is 90 on the dot.
This is 90 on the dot, yeah.
Yeah, so as far as our action star, that's a good transition. We couldn't be farther from my critiques of RoboCop because we are dealing with Arnold goddamn Schwarzenegger. He has so much more life in this than what we saw with Weller in RoboCop, and even the handful of cheesy lines that probably both iconic action stars are going to be saying after a kill or after a punch or maybe a literal punchline. It comes off with so much more star power with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And
would you say like overall believability too of the character?
Yeah, I mean, even when it's silly, like, I don't know, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's just able to sell it more. Like, there's more charm there. It's kind of an odd thing to credit to an actor, but again, just a quick flashback to my critique with RoboCop, where lifelessness was really the cornerstone there.
Yeah, you were not a fan.
Yeah, and boring in such a movie central to action. Arnold is just a total 180 on this, and that star power, though it may not be something that can say as a universal criticism for actors, I think it is something we have to talk about with one of the biggest action stars being Schwarzenegger.
Time. Huge, big time.
Exactly. And wow, is Sharon Stone awesome in this. I cannot wait to touch on Basic Instinct coming up next on the Verhoeven little film study. She plays into such manipulation in this. I really just love her role, a true femme fatale in this. Just so cool as ice. I love her. And again, absolutely gorgeous.
She's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's
like
crazy.
Stunning.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
Yeah, I would say this is a standout role. Of course, Stone is amazing in films like Casino. I would say Basic Instinct coming up is probably going to be her most iconic. I would add this to this because she is not a bit role here. She has a interesting development.
Yeah, she's a pretty major character in this film.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's definitely in like the 1990 period here. She's a pretty damn big actress as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
She's a powerhouse
Absolutely.
in her own right.
Yeah, I mean, I just really happy with her performances here, and there's a slew of kind of not repeat offenders or usual suspects, but the typical actors that Verhoeven leans on throughout this film sprinkled in, and then of course we'll see in other films, and what we're going towards with Starship Troopers as kind of the end destination here.
Okay.
This story has what I love, though, about movies like Truman Show. There is some sort of foreboding presence, and we as the audience can tell something is wrong, even on a first watch. Something feels off, and it is there's almost a game-like aspect to the movie that alongside of our main character, we are trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And there's so much enjoyment for that unpacking.
So is that kind of where you don't really want to touch on actually just even the summary of it a bit, because it's something to be enjoyed,
exactly,
and figure out as you're watching.
And I'm talking like double-digit twists and turns, and I don't even want to spoil a single one, because part of the enjoyment in this film, and I think why it's, again, my point in this standing up in a modern-day watching, even being a very cheesy action film in parts, it has just such an abundance of these. I think it has a wow factor to a modern.
It keeps you on your toes, keeps you on the edge of the seat a little bit.
Absolutely.
And keeps you guessing, basically.
Yeah. So it's very solid. I would say if I really have to kind of tone back some of my praise for this, the dated aspect of some of those cheesy action lines.
Well, here's what I would guess.
Sure.
Like how really is the script? I would say how are the practical effects, or just the effects in general, and then how is I'm assuming very heavy 80s soundtrack still.
Yes.
Because it's only 1990, so we're still like...
That's a good way to break it down. I would say script is where that's going to be hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
We're going to get some really... but Arnold kind of sells these lines. Like, they got legit laughs out of me, and I'm not laughing at it. Believe me, I know I'm laughing at it.
Catwoman.
Yeah, I was laughing at the Catwoman constantly.
Yeah.
But there's... I don't know what else to say.
Okay.
He sells it. Arnold, he's definitely goofy, but like, you can see the character is almost enjoying the little bit of goofiness to it.
He's in on it a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is extremely helpful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think if I had to just boil it down to something, I think star power really sells it.
Yeah.
Brutality, practical effects, absolutely a standout. This actually got Oscar nominations for special effects, and I believe a special achievement years later as well.
And it's all practical effects, like no real like early CGI or anything like that, or digital?
More, maybe some landscapes are early CGI, but they look good. And Verhoeven's practical effects, and more specifically the blood work and the violence that was definitely a highlight in RoboCop is once again on full display here.
Cool.
And not that the two movies have to compete, very different stories, but if you're looking for that really capital R, rated R action of this time period, late 80s, early 90s, this
all right
takes
there.
the cake. It's everything that RoboCop is and better.
Cool.
Know?
Well, all right.
Music,
music,
I would say 50-50.
Okay. It's better than completely bad.
Yeah, first half is really good because it kind of plays into that paranoia, but there's definitely some weird, they go into a bar at one point and it's like... I don't even know who composed it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'll hop on GarageBand and I can make it, it's a little rough.
So it's not overly synthy.
Yeah. No, I would say it's definitely synthy.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
right. Okay.
Yeah, this is prime late 80s, even if it's 90 on the dot, this is...
That was my fear.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
But if it works, if it's 50-50, that's good.
Yeah, it's 50-50. I would say it's definitely nothing that detracted from my enjoyment of the film.
Okay.
So I would say really the cornerstone of what we're focusing on Verhoeven for is kind of a building theory that I have, that Verhoeven's trademark in his directing is his world building, particularly through media around our characters.
Yeah, you were talking about this a lot in RoboCop, and setting that up because it's something that he does. He likes to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, the world building.
And not to try to find the conclusion I want through this kind of study, but in Starship Troopers, that's central to the satire. Him creating news segments, commercials, and central to how he's crafting that world.
Gotcha.
And I would really say it's on great display here. We have very deep sci-fi world to catch up on, and none of it hits any snags because guess what? It's also trying to be a top-line blockbuster rated R action film in 1990. We're talking concepts like everything from commercial space travel to cosmetic memory altering to mutants to alien ruins. I mean, all of this is tackled through visual storytelling in the film, and none of it lags the main action plot, which is just so much easier said than done. This is handled in less competent hands. This would be so easily derailed and get up its own, up its own rear end around this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it could be a very, very. It could easily be a very bad movie and come off cheesy elements like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was almost a morbid curiosity to watch that remake Total Recall to see how they would want to make it too serious or something like that.
And any serious director in that one? Or
I
anything?
actually don't know off the top of my head. I know it's Colin Farrell.
Maybe
I think.
maybe a fun episode would be to go through these
All the
rated R
remakes.
action remake
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, I would
'Cause
love to
it is-
revisit Dredd. Dredd's a good one.
It is Dredd, RoboCop, Total Recall. We can find a couple more, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure 2 more we could wrap up. Yeah. But yeah, that's really my at least my objective in looking at Verhoeven's directing style here. And just again, the point is it is on great display here. I think even that being a saving grace for RoboCop, I say don't waste your time with it. Jump right to Total Recall because you're getting everything that was good about RoboCop, and guess what? Now it's just in a really very entertaining, very fun and engaging movie.
Yeah.
So
Very cool. All right.
yeah. I could really nerd out all day about this movie, though, because there is just so much to dive into and really so much it tackles within a dumb blockbuster action film. But again, there is a refreshing amount of creativity and originality to this film. And if you definitely haven't seen it, which I think probably a lot of people haven't seen as far as modern day watching.
I haven't.
Yeah. Give it a watch. It is a great time and a solid recommend from me. We're going to go ahead and give Total Recall a 79.
Oh, wow. 79. Very, very good
Leagues
score.
above RoboCop.
79 is very good. Yeah, almost touching the 80s there.
Absolutely.
That's cool. That's good if you're looking for that rated R action, a little bit of sci-fi, go for it.
Absolutely. And a
sounds like.
very entertaining sci-fi
Yeah, it's
plot.
enjoyable. Yeah, it's packaged. It's just under 2 hours, like you said. It's an hour and 53. Good. That's a nice little package there. Okay.
Exactly.
Very good. Okay, so Total Recall with a 79. Big movies this week. We're going to keep it going here. We're 8 years ahead here. This is 1998. Everybody knows the name. This is really a big film we got here. This is a Big Lebowski by the Coen brothers.
Absolutely.
The last Coen brothers we did was, I believe, Fargo.
Yes,
which was
and
in
this
88.
was actually sequentially after it, I believe. Yeah.
So the Big Lebowski. What do we have? How big is it here?
A classic Coen Brothers joint,
Yeah.
written and directed both by them. I guess one of them is uncredited.
For whatever reason, Ethan Coen, I believe, is uncredited, but he does.
I wonder
it's still
why.
It's still known as a Coen Brothers picture. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Honestly, I've of course seen parts of this film, but I don't think I've seen it all the way through.
Like straight through where you're really watching
Yeah,
it.
because I was watching and I was like, I don't think I remember this. But
that's kind of nice then, actually.
yeah, exactly. So, and really the next entry in their filmography after Fargo, a huge hit for me and critically on the podcast, with plenty of returning cast here. We have actually a very interesting, a lot of the returning cast goes into a supporting role in this. We have Stanley Tucci. No, what am I saying?
Steve Buscemi?
Steve Buscemi. Why did I say Stanley Tucci? But a lot of it is returning cast. They go into a supporting role, which is kind of fun. There's almost kind of a shared light to side, shared spotlight for that. So, Big Lebowski centers around the dude, a bona fide loser, a daydreamer, a deadbeat, and played by Jeff Bridges. I would say this is probably his most iconic role to date. I mean,
I think absolutely, just because just the sheer power that this movie has. I mean, people like even younger. The movie's pushing 25 years old almost, and it still has like presence.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
today people know the dude, people know the movie.
Absolutely.
I mean, he won the Oscar for Crazy Heart, but it's like a movie that really nobody really knows all that much.
Yeah, exactly. And this is way before we get into Western voice Jeff Bridges. This era of Southern Belle Jeff Bridges.
It's true.
Thing is echoing today.
Well, and speaking of that, just like True Grit was big for him.
Yep.
I mean, he was great, and we love him in some movies like
Hell or High Water.
Exactly
He's good.
right.
Yeah.
But Big Lebowski, I think bar none.
Yeah.
That's his biggest role.
Absolutely.
That people recognize him for.
And he really is iconic. I love his acting here. His performance is comedic, but also, I don't know. I mean, you could very easily say that like a Keanu or someone, someone that's kind of more laid back could maybe fill this role, but Jeff really does make it his own, and I think it's deserved of that iconic.
Yeah, he plays the character so well. He just represents what he's supposed to be, what the character is written to be. He just effortlessly, seeming so at least, just puts that out on film. He's so good.
Absolutely. A lot of that is physical comedy too in this. It's not like he's like tripping and falling, but he's around a lot of thugs and whatnot. So violence is very much around this, and we'll get into that in a little bit for sure. When the dude is mixed up for a different Lebowski, he gets tangled in with scheming porn stars, wealthy businessmen, and low-life thugs all trying to scramble for a piece of the pie, and that scrambling is what I think makes this a iconic Coen Brothers joint. It's almost the same kind of skeleton that we looked at with Fargo, that it's about this crime comedy genre. It is the sweet spot for the Coen Brothers that they love to write. It's just that I don't know. I mean, they obviously branch out later on in their career from this, but it feels like early on there's just so much there that they love writing about small-time crooks, and these small-time crooks are goofy by being small-time. You know what I mean? So it's just a natural. It's just such a sweet spot for them, which is great. Everyone is just naturally ridiculous, which is entertaining. Performances are a big highlight here. John Goodman is huge, a huge role, but also almost just as iconic as the dude, I would say.
He's great. Yeah, he's so great in it.
Philip Seymour Hoffman as well. I wouldn't say a super early Philip Seymour Hoffman. This is 98?
98. It's still pretty early.
But got some very legitimate laughs out of me just because, again,
so good.
It goes back when we covered the Paul Thomas Anderson episode. He's just not afraid to make himself look like an idiot, and he's just great.
He's so good.
He brings just such a genuineness to it.
Yeah.
Goodman is actually, I think, the ace in the hole for this film, though, because when it comes to how the plot moves along, it really is. He's central to creating these asinine schemes that keep everything moving at a clip. I think without him, the film actually probably would be quite boring because the dude isn't really spurred to action. He's the dude.
Right, yeah. No, absolutely.
He's just chilling. So it also represents really the comedy theme here in Goodman's character. The main theme, I would say, for all the comedic setup is confirmation bias throughout the whole film. Characters think one thing and act wrong, and it's only when they reveal how ridiculous what their assumption was that's really the punchline. And
right.
I think it's great because every single character is messing up to some degree, and they're all kind of colliding with their own assumptions of what they think the action should be, or what they think the predictable story is, and it turns out everything is unpredictable. And I think overall, what's refreshing about, really, it's more of a comedy than anything, The Big Lebowski. It is a very unpredictable story, which we go back to, a couple weeks ago with Lost City. Key thing here was just that
it's
it
the
was
most predictable
so
thing in the world. Yeah,
exactly. So
it's great watching those pictures. That is just sometimes you have to watching The Big Lebowski for the first time. I'm almost jealous of those people because it's so weird, and it's those moments where it's just like, what is this movie? What is this movie? What's going on exactly? And just that feeling, it's good. And like you said, it's comedy, but it's a dark comedy. But at points, you're actually it is actually quite good, good actual out loud laughs, and it's just unique for that reason.
Yeah,
and it's part of the reason why it's so special, I think, too, still today.
Yeah, absolutely, and not terribly old. 98's not too bad.
No, but it's 25 years almost. Yeah.
I would say, as a slight critique to this comedic setup, it's a little bit rinse and repeat throughout the whole film. It really is the punchline to nearly every joke in this film. That it's character has an expectation. That expectation, it couldn't be further from the truth, and they embarrass themselves by following through on that expectation. Right. I would say it stays funny, but I would say by the end it is very noticeable that this is the same punchline for every character, and maybe it's because it is for every character. There is equal credit and criticism from me because clearly that's good writing. That is very good follow-through for the Coen brothers. You know, they are lasered into this theme.
Yeah.
Like I said, my note there was just that it was very noticeable by the end. It was just like, okay. You know,
going down the same road again.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. The dude, as a deadbeat, has dabbled in his fair share of drugs. This film dips its toes into a few psychedelic sequences. And I think in the late 90s, this probably stood out a lot better, a lot more shocking, a lot more funny. In a modern day watch, I felt it was kind of tame. And maybe this is because, every modern day comedy now has a shrooms tripping sequence, or the character eats a pot brownie or something like that, you know?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't want to fault it too much, but
watching it in the here and now, it lost its luster a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. There's certainly craftsmanship and artistry in the psychedelic sequences, you know, because it's very dreamlike and whatnot. You know, the Coen brothers are putting heart into it, but like I said, in the wrappings of a comedy, it felt a little tame, if that makes sense.
Sure, sure. And again, because we're watching in the here and now. So we've had so many scenes and so many just sequences of this already.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
like you said, if you were watching it fresh in 98, pretty hilarious. The song is a great choice, and it's just, you know, it's pretty iconic. So,
yeah. Actually, that's a good point. I don't have it marked down here, but we really do have a very iconic soundtrack to this.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely on the tails of music or soundtrack driven type of films in the late 90s. Your Tarantino, your Scorsese, you know.
Well, you made the comment in the Paul Thomas Anderson, I believe. What was it? The
Boogie Nights.
Yeah, you said the Boogie Nights was phenomenal in the late 90s as well. That soundtrack.
So, but just very hot at that time, and 98 definitely falls into that. So, overall, though, I think this film lives up to the hype. In a lot of ways, the script is fresh and filled with cleverness that we know the Coen brothers for. I think my issue lies with more so the expectation with a story beyond the story, like we saw with Fargo. You know, Fargo has just such visual storytelling, such storytelling through its setting itself that not even a single line of dialogue is promoted to. I can't really knock this film or fault this film for that because it's really simply just not concerned with that. It's trying to be a comedy first and foremost. But let me say this to quell expectations for those that may have not, you know, watched The Big Lebowski. It's not doing that complex of a juggling act. And rather, this much more is the comedy template that we see the Coen brothers lean on multiple times in their future career. This is the DNA for Burn After Reading, for Hail Caesar, definitely for parts of Buster Scruggs. You know, so toning expectations back a little bit. I'm not calling this the best thing ever. Is very enjoyable. I think it lives up to the hype for Bridges' performances and definitely John Goodman as well. And certainly worth your time, but I think kind of a balance there is needed because I was expecting a lot more of a juggling act where it was just more so pretty straightforward.
Because it's movie on its own. It's supposed to be its own thing, kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So with that said, we will give The Big Lebowski a 69.
Oh, okay.
You were expecting more.
I really was.
Yeah?
I was expecting around a 79 just because it seems like you really did enjoy it.
I did enjoy it. I just... Again, it was by the end. I think the punch of the comedy kind of gets diluted a little bit, and by its own thing. But listen, 69.
Oh, it's still a good movie. That's a good movie. I just it still surprises me a little bit though. I just thought it would at least be mid 70s. I do have to say, but 69, a good movie. Okay, very good. That's The Big Lebowski. And well, like we said, Ben, we have 3 new movies.
I have given my money to too many theaters. I've single-handedly supported the industry.
No, okay, but 2 big ones: Total Recall, Big Lebowski. And before we go into our now in theaters, folks, we're just going to go ahead and go into our donation segment. Now we have a lot to talk about. So anyone who caught last week's episode, I just put the little message out in the beginning saying we really had some massive problems with the site. For weeks, the donation page was not working properly. Then it was working, but only for PayPal. And we had multiple people trying to do credit card donations. It didn't work, even when we thought it was fixed. And look, for the past 5 weeks, we've been saying, oh, the site had some problems, but it's good now. You can go on.
Right.
Total failure.
The importance of testing.
Yes,
many different
we were
things.
talking about shooting ourselves in the foot. So I did say we wanted to take a moment to those who did tried to be producers and produce the show, and then we just stopped them. Basically, we just want to give a quick shout out. So we do have Ann A.
Yep.
They tried to sign up for a monthly donation for the Alien a month, which is $9.20 because that's a 92 on the site. So we thank you, Ann. Maybe they're man overboard. Maybe we don't have them as a listener anymore. Still, thank you for trying to be a producer.
And even one listen is,
and our bad on that.
We appreciate it.
And then Brandon Beebe tried to donate $100. So we want to give a shout out to Brandon Beebe as well. His note that he read, a short note he wrote in, he apologized for Uncharted for me. He was sorry for me for Uncharted, which I appreciate. He said that he felt the same way about the Halo series. Apparently a big Halo fan.
And that TV, I hear, is a dumpster fire.
It's
showing
really
his face
upsetting.
on episode 1.
Yes.
It's not about anything.
For many reasons. It's tough. And for fans, I can only imagine with him being a huge Halo fan, waiting, almost 2 decades, basically? Almost 20 years.
I think that was like another one that Spielberg was supposed to do a movie for, flirting for that for years.
Oh my gosh. Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis, which we're very sorry to see him leave the landscape. It is. But no, he was slated to be in Halo movie years ago when it first got to play around. He was going to play Master Chief and everything like that.
Wow.
Regardless, so he did make a note and he said, Vin, go easy on Sonic as well. So maybe we'll never see the $100 again from Brandon. We thank you for trying to donate that $100.
Oh, man.
I hope we were fair enough on Sonic.
No, Sonic 2.
Sonic 2 is a 59.
Was halfway decent.
It's a good movie. 59 is a good movie.
Absolutely.
That's fine. It's an okay movie.
Nearly above average.
No, but so we want to give a shout out to those two for trying to donate, especially $100. Unbelievable.
Absolutely.
We thank you so much for trying to do that. And we apologize for all the inconveniences on our side. Just the back end of the website. It was a nightmare for us.
And honestly, God forbid we ever run into road bumps. This type of archiving, this goes to also the running total for any of you that become the, at a director level, so we can make sure that we track your engagement with us. Yep. There is follow through, or rather safety nets, maybe I should say.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then another donor who tried to donate multiple times, and again with the failed transactions that we're catching, they did get through as the site is working now. They went ahead and they donated, again, $100.
Wow.
We're getting these $100 donations, which is incredible. And if that's the standard, go for it.
Sure.
But as whatever you want or can give us, it's huge. But Glenn and Carol are here. They sent us $100, Vin, and they wrote a note in. They said, we really enjoy the podcast. You are both compatible behind the mics and feed off each other's comments well with the occasional banter that makes the show shine. Which is a great compliment. Vinny, you had me laughing with your critique of the DC Marvel movies. Very fun episode. Generally, I think you guys are spot on with the ratings. However, here we go. However,
take out the knives, Glenn.
Your rating of 52% for That Thing You Do is way off. So, folks, That Thing You Do.
He's on the site. He's doing his research.
He's on the site, yeah. So, folks, That Thing You Do, we don't have audio to it yet, but it is on the site because we've rated it we've had it in the daily ratings kind of file for quite some time. However, your rating of 52% for That Thing You Do is way off. He goes, is this a typo? No, it is not, believe it or not. You mentioned it in your latest episode that maybe a 50 is so bad it's good comment. This cult classic fun movie is, in my opinion, definitely worth watching, he says. Yes, this was Tom Hanks' first movie directing, but in the movie he said to the band, I want something snappy, and he delivered just that with this film.
That's great. I didn't know
this is Tom Hanks. Maybe this is Tom Hanks writing in. He's not getting the credit.
He's got an alias.
Tom Hanks' first director, That Thing You Do. Yeah. I realize it's not in the 90% of all time, but this movie should be at least in the 80% must-watch movies, or at least 2 shoes, laces on one for Thomas.
There we go. Very
good. We got a real fan here. Wondering if Vin would have scored it higher if your gal Emma Stone played Liv Tyler's part.
Oh, absolutely. I will admit it. That is my bias.
That's
sure.
funny. You would have loved it then. I think Emma Stone at the time was probably like 4 years old. And it even says in quotes, by the way, La La Land with a thumbs down next to it, by the way. You also suggested you may have more comedies coming. Would love to see some ratings on some of my favorites, such as Slapshot, Animal House, Caddyshack, Anchorman, Step Brothers. Keep up the great work, guys.
I do love Step
And
Brothers.
as avid listeners and now producers of the show, we wish you all the best.
Wow.
This was a great note.
Yeah, that is
from
a
Glenn and
stellar
Carol.
note.
And we thank you. Hey, a little bit of praise in the beginning, and then you hit us in the end. I'd love it.
We were asking for it. A couple weeks we were saying. Tear us apart.
And this is actually great, by the way. So and this is what kind of makes the donation segment fun. And as we get into the show, I think people will start to understand kind of what the whole deal is here, and what the donation segment is all about. And we're taking some extra time here as well. But those comedies, by the way, that you said, yes, we do want to step up some comedies. Some of these, believe it or not, 4.5, 5 years ago, some of these comedies that you had mentioned, such as Caddyshack and Anchorman, or at least Anchorman and Step Brothers, those were on early lists. And we were going through this and looking on them and about to really like push the site out a little bit. We said, you know what? These need a little bit more of a proper watch. Let's rewatch those. So these comedies are actually coming soon.
Yeah.
And these are actually some great ones. Animal House, Slapshot. I mean, Animal House is classic.
Of course, absolutely.
And those are some great ideas, and I think you'll be happy because those are coming. That thing you do in the 80s, man, I don't know. I did actually. It's a classic movie too. I like it.
The story behind that is definitely Tom. I think you showed me that. You had to.
I definitely did. I definitely did. I don't know about two shoes with one lace is tied. That's some pretty big territory. But no, that's great. We love 52. You gave it, which is great.
That's great.
But okay, so again, we thank you so much. It's $100. And we can't thank you enough. And you are an official producer of the Daily Ratings. So thank you for that. And for people listening right now, if you're confused what the hell is going on, it's the producer segment. It's where we thank you producers who donate to the show. Vin and I host the show. What you all are doing by going to the Daily Ratings, you go to the donations tab there at the top right, and you donate whatever amount of monetary value that you are getting from this. It's the value for value model. Are you getting value from looking at the site or listening to the podcast? If you could, put a $ amount next to it. And then you could donate to us, and you can write a note in, like we just read from Glenn and Carol. If you want to be anonymous, you can click the anonymous box, and we'll know who you are, Vin and I, but we won't say your name out loud. But otherwise, we're trying to stay away from advertising on the podcast, and we are also trying to stay away from advertising on the site because it can really bog it down, and it's just a worse user experience. I'm going to take the time now. I'm not going to get into my opinions and thoughts long-term on advertising on podcast and how that model is right now. We don't have to get into that. I could go on for hours about problems or the future issues I think we'll have with that. Basically what this is, I mean, think about it. We're coming out with 52 episodes a year, basically. And if we have 2 or 3 ads, that is 2.5, 3.5 hours a year of just us reading ads to you. It's kind of ridiculous. So maybe give us $5 a month, $5 a year. Say, hey, okay, we're saving you all those ads, and you are listening to us.
Sure.
We're not, you don't have to pull out your phone every 15 minutes when we're throwing an ad, and you have to quick fast forward and everything like that. Because that's what you're going to do to the ads anyway. Let's be honest. You're going to fast forward through them if you're anywhere near your phone. And it's just a different way of doing it. It's a value for value model. We didn't come up with it. We're not the first ones to do it, but it's the model that we're going after. And the cool thing is it opens up a through line to you. There's a couple comments I got. Why not just have ads? Because we're sitting here through a donation segment anyway that we're fast forwarding through. The idea behind this is, first of all, we thank the producers and we give you a shout out, but it's a through line to you. Do you have suggestions, critiques for us?
Absolutely.
But also, what this podcast is bite-sized movie review segments with a rating at the end. And Vin and I try not to have we try to keep the chatter to a minimum. We really do, because that's not what you're here for.
Sure.
But in the donation segment, if you want to get to know us a little bit, if you have questions on us, if you want to talk about TV a little bit, because it's not a TV podcast, this is a time to maybe ask us. You're taking the time to produce this show for us. You're going online, you're writing in a note and everything like that, and you're giving us money. That means something. Be producer of the show means something. If you want to have the most generic or weird questions or out of left field for us, let's have some fun.
That's the time for the dialogue.
The donation,
for sure.
yes. It's fun because we can have some good banter. We can go back and forth with you. It's a through line to you, how you're enjoying the show, what could be better, and also, hey, ask us a question if you want. Talk about TV, like the Halo and everything like that. We're going to try to keep it shorter. We won't have won't be going on this long script every episode, hopefully. But I'm just trying to, I think there's some confusion.
We're back after a few weeks, you know what I mean?
And I think there's some confusion right now what this donation segment is.
Sure,
and because we're so early on and not having a lot of donors, this is kind of what it is. Get the feel for it. We give you the shout out, we read your note, we have some banter, we talk to you directly, and that's what this is. Again, it's the dailyratings.com. Go to the donations tab that is now working, and you can go through PayPal or you can go through your credit card, whatever, put your information in. Finally, the transactions will go through, and that's kind of what this is. And again, as Vinny alluded to earlier, if over any period of time, with any amount of donations, subscription or not, if you ever hit $500 that you've given to us, you're now considered a director. So if Glenn and Carol, or if Glenn donates a total of $500 and he doesn't want to be called Glenn, he wants to be called Director Glenn, or he wants to be called Director Hanks, or Director That Thing You Do, that's fine. It's just another thing. You can choose your name with director in front of it. You'll get a goodie bag, a gift bag from us too. And you also get to choose any movie for Vin you want to review. So if there's that movie that you really want him to, well, if you donate that much, no matter what, Vin is going to review that for one of the podcasts.
He said it, folks. No matter what.
Podcasts after that.
I'm shackled.
But that's what this is all about. Just to give everybody an idea again, dailyratings.com, donations tab. We thank you so much for all of you. And if you can't donate, hey, just tell a friend about us.
Absolutely.
Tell a family member about us. And we thank you so much. Okay, now we're going to keep this rolling here. We're going to go to our now in theaters.
Three of them.
Newly released. We have 3, so these are all 2022 films. We're going to start with one that some people might know. It's getting some good critic reviews.
Oh, yes. And very high rating.
I don't really know what to think about it much. I don't really know that much about it. So, Vin, we have Everything Everywhere All at Once. And what is this movie?
Okay, yeah. So Everything Everywhere, I'll just refer to as the first two because it's a little bit of a mouthful. But this directing duo has mostly stuck together for their careers. Swiss Army Man is their probably biggest production.
And this is Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert.
Yes. And definitely kind of, if you know that movie at all, kind of sets their tone that there is very much kind of a goofy comedy core to whatever the actual movie is about. They also have roots going all the way back to Adult Swim, where they were both some sort of producers or directors as well. Also interesting that the Russo brothers, and I'm talking about like Marvel Russo brothers, they are producers on this joint.
Really?
So yeah, I mean, they are about the hottest thing you can have as far as a producer behind you. So I think that maybe plays into some of the draw for this, because I mean, though they are definitely big names now. This movie isn't quite everything, but it is a lot of things. Okay. It is a lot of things. I would call this a absurdist comedy with a heavy dose of martial arts action. Michelle Yeoh stars as Evelyn, a Chinese mother that is seemingly losing control of her life and losing focus on what truly matters around her family, around her relationships. And that focus is further lost when she discovers she is the center of near infinite parallel universes and is able to snap into them on command. It is an out there premise.
Okay, kind of cool.
Yeah. I would say for, maybe folks at home, if you are the type to say Hollywood is dead, there is no original ideas, it is all Star Wars and Marvel, it is all blockbuster franchises. I gotta say, I mean, this is a big movie, getting a lot of critical acclaim, and more than anything, probably the most unique story we've gotten all year. So
yeah, especially for a big title. Yeah,
exactly. Also, with this being around parallel universes, is kind of a perfect match for the Russo brothers to get a part of, because guess what Marvel has been tackling for the last 2 years is all these multiverses,
portals, portals everywhere.
I will say though, it is refreshing to have kind of a dimensional multiverse plot not tied to superheroes. There is a refreshing aspect to it, and I think
that's a good
want
point
to give
to make.
I want to give some credit to this film for that reason. It's not burnout just yet.
Okay. Now, is this movie overall? Is this? It's all like Chinese or Asian cast, correct?
Nearly all. Jamie Lee Curtis is in it.
Okay, so this
is role.
Is it a Hollywood-made film, or is this a subtitle film because it was made in China or
Asia?
No.
Definitely a Hollywood film. There is some Mandarin spoken in it, just to keep it authentic. But this is A24.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because especially with all the American big names behind it. Okay.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And I, again, much like if you know the movie Swiss Army Man by these directors, but also A24, this is a very quirky movie. This is, I wouldn't call it indie anymore. I mean, A24 has two slots on this week's podcast.
And they've had a lot overall in the past 30 weeks that we've been doing this.
Exactly.
And they just had a huge funding round for them.
Yeah.
They are no longer anytime small time or indie. I think they're really major.
Yeah, it's more so now. Like indie by genre and styling, not necessarily by scale.
Oh,
so.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Like, it's incredible, their arsenal that they have now.
The main plot, though, around Everything Everywhere is really around family and is much more sappy in parts than I thought. I would almost describe this, again, primarily an absurdist comedy. An absurdist is really how...
Some bonker moments.
Yeah, absolutely. But good. I mean, it's meant for comedy. I would say second is this martial arts action film, but again, this is juggling quite a bit, and these themes of tradition, happiness, nihilism, fate, all of it is juggled around comedic moments, and I would say a lot of the comedic moments wouldn't land as well if they weren't followed up with something a little bit more genuine. These genuine family moments, they're sappy, but they come off very well because it's not for a punchline. They're never diminished. It's, if anything, the joke and the punchline stands on its own. It's delivered to the audience, probably through some sort of outrageous, dimension. And then as well, it's then followed up to kind of bring us, if you will, back to earth a little bit, back to normal. And I think that's really the key for success in this, because if it was just this absurdist comedy, I think it really wouldn't hit as wide range for audiences. The core is more of a family drama around tradition and whatnot.
And the fact that
a little bit like Turning Red in a way, that was about family and tradition and expectation and things like that. In ways, there is a heart to it in just the same way. You come across almost feel good in a good way.
And what you're saying is it's throughout the movie enough where it's grounded by this, so the truly bonkersness, it brings everyone back down.
Exactly.
And it has something to at least relatable.
It is a necessary balance. It is the salt in the baked cake. You know what I mean?
It keeps it from being a complete insane movie.
Exactly.
That probably would be really not be great for the larger audience.
I mean, the absurdist, it would definitely be there. It would definitely be a sight to behold to watch something so, so produced and not tied to a superhero movie or anything like that. So there would be probably getting a recommendation for me, but this fits into a very good category for me because of the balancing act, and it knows we need to have some sort of normalcy to bring us back a little bit, even the slightest bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Some of these comedic moments for how shocking they are. I mean, I think some hit, some aren't going to hit. I would say the first act is probably the most grating towards this because we're not really expecting any of the craziness just yet. And because there is an ounce of normalcy to the world, this kind of makes some of the weirdness a little grating. In the theater as well, I think is a perfect example of this. We got almost awkward laughter. We got people walking out in the first act. Yes.
Wow.
Because I think this movie has a lot of hype and people are coming to see it for the hype. But that first act shoots itself a little bit in the foot because it's not 100% weird yet. So the little doses of weird come off. If anything,
it's out of left field, completely out of left field.
Exactly. They're highlighted because of that. It makes an awkward pill to swallow, but once that pill is down, luckily by the time, I mean, quite literally exactly on the second act, once it hits, marked by how this is chopped up in the film, we are in full bore on the premise and the wackiness of this dimensional plot. Also, the audience is fully caught up on how... not the science, but the logic of the multiverse in this film. The audience is fully caught up, so we're not, we were expecting it, and we can actually engage with the plot.
That's good. Yeah. You're aware you get what's going on.
Yeah.
You're not completely in the dark at this point.
Exactly.
Good.
It's definitely where the film works the best. And I would say, if you are going to explore this film, or if you haven't seen it yet, give it a shot. Understand that first act might be, again, kind of an awkward awkward pill to swallow, but stick it through. It is definitely worth it, and certainly definitely worth it for how crazy and wild the ride is here.
The water's a little cold at first, but stay in because it'll be fine. Once when you're in, you'll be all right.
Yeah. I have to say, though, overall, it is a pretty dynamite movie. It takes a multiverse premise like we saw in Spider-Man and soon to be on the podcast, the new Doctor Strange. And it just runs with it to such an extreme that even those blockbuster superhero movies, they're scared to tread. And there's a ballsiness to it.
I love like a confidence too behind it.
Yeah. They're really going as far as you can expect with certain dimensions. And it really is my favorite aspect here. Very creative edits between universes. Hits sometimes carry over because the characters are technically living in all universes at once.
Okay.
So we have some very Edgar Wright type of edits between hits and action, especially when the heavy martial arts aspect comes into this film. I would say probably second to just the bombastic premise here of multiverses is that this is a kung fu, like capital K kung fu action film. Like,
really good.
I mean, obviously Michelle Yeoh has a long line in that acting. I think Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and even maybe I think Hero. She's been in those type of movies coming up through her career. But wow, it is really impressive. A lot of credit here goes to juggling so many different settings. And the production is there to meet it. That's where I think my note for the Russo brothers producing is important, because it has a lot, I mean, double digit, different settings and costume design, and
it's a production. This is a big production.
Oh yeah. There is a lot to it. Don't get me wrong. Some are definitely more complex than others. We have either another Office type of sequence versus, something more blown out for the film. But you have to understand here, the sheer scale is very impressive, and again, leans into just a solid recommendation. We're talking like 30 plus unique sets on here. And all the costumes are wild, and it's just all very impressive. It is a sight to behold. So I'm very curious how this stands up with this test of time, both for as these multiverse type of plots come. Is there going to be burnout? Is there burnout already?
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely.
So is this going to be the new time travel or sci-fi gimmick to a lot of movies? And just see how it holds up. I would say another slight critique. I will say this film is a little bit exhausting for this reason, for how much of a juggling act there is. We're talking 2 hours and 19.
Yeah.
You can fact check me on. Yeah,
nope,
2 hours and 19.
Yep.
And that isn't brief by any means. I did find myself checking the clock a little bit, just because in those sappy moments I was wondering, all right, well, where's this going? Are we just really kind of, it's more feel good than I expected.
Okay.
So, and just so much is thrown at you constantly. So I'll say maybe not a movie for an older demographic, because it really is just like a mile a minute.
What the hell is going on here?
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely like stimulation overload. So equal part credit to that, because again, there's just such a juggling act to the production. I have such an appreciation to the craft of that.
Yeah, it is cool.
Think about, pre-production. Okay, we have to do how many different costume sets? It's a lot. So what I think I want to end on actually is performances. I think the main cast is really doing a top-notch job here. Each of these dimensions don't really have enough time on screen to give depth, but it is again their mundane life, the normal family life that we see every character get a chance to tackle depth. I'm gonna mispronounce, my apologies. I think it's
Go for it.
Ki Huan Kwan. That's my best chance.
No, that's about right.
Who plays the father in this is a great example of this. His character just grows from boring moments into something just so stand out and filled with a lot of emotion. I'm not really an emotional watcher, but I gotta say, there really was some tear-jerking moments around his character. And again, totally unexpected in this very wacky,
And this
absurdist
wild,
comedy.
yeah. They were tugging at heartstrings and well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's where I think it kind of sells its own elevator pitch that, it's everything everywhere when it comes to just its zaniness, but it's also multiple genre juggling as well, which I think is more and more becoming a defining quality of the movies we're seeing in modern day.
Right. Okay.
Is multiple genres at once. So, also Jamie Lee Curtis as well. What goes from an unlikable IRS agent by the end gives her enough time to have emotional depth to match the other characters. I mean, really, really interesting. Like I said from the start, I would almost call this a feel-good film for how sappy it gets, and that could be a negative for some. However, what was positive for me is that this film had the emotion beyond the absurdism of its plot, and especially for how unique the package it's wrapped up in. We're going to go ahead and give Everything, Everywhere, All at Once a 77.
77, a very good score.
Very solid.
That goes into a very good movie. Wow, okay. So it really did take the hype.
Well, let me tone it back maybe a little bit. This has consecutively had 10 out of 10s, I think sitting at like a 90, something high 90s.
So this is where I want to make a note. We are a film critic site and podcast here, which means you're going to find you are critical on movies because that's why we exist. 100s don't really exist because if next week a movie that comes out better than that 100, what do you do then? You can't give it a 101%. That's not how that goes. We don't do it that way. And so when you're in the 70s, for us, if you get into the 70s, that's a very good movie.
Absolutely. High 70s, too. It's a great movie.
60s is a good movie. 70s is a very good movie. 80s is when you're like seriously good territory. Make time to go see it. And as you know, if you've been on our site, once when you hit that 85% mark, these are some of the greatest movies of all time. These are true must-watches for pretty much any audience.
The, if you will, the before you die type of watch kind of thing.
Yeah, just like these should be watched. And I think we have like 10 or 11 in the 90s. Those are movies that in the past 100 years of cinema, these are like the best movies ever made. So that's kind of how we operate here. So when you're looking at, like you said, Vin, 10 out of 10s, a 97 on Rotten Tomatoes, it's just like, okay, really? There's not 3%. There's only 3% that could have been done a little bit differently or a little bit better. It's just like, come on, folks.
And moreover, I mean, I think, well, of course, I mean, an older demographic is, it's me watching the film, but I think maybe noting that at 97, this movie is not, because it's definitely not for nearly 97% of the population. There are some viewing audiences that probably just flat out won't like this film, but I think a 77 kind of encompasses where I'm coming from. That there's so much originality, and I went on into it.
No, so. And the fact is, the 77 here on our site really means something. It means a lot more than a 77 on pretty much most other sites. People forget that the purpose of this is to be critical of movies, give you a watching guide, a viewing guide, and that's where this stands. So a 77 is a pretty damn good movie, just like Total Recall is 79.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a very good movie.
Absolutely.
Again, I just want to make that distinction too. Once in a while, we try to make that, just let people know where we're coming from on that. Okay, so 77 for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now we have a movie that I was extremely excited for months. I would say this and The Batman was what I was most looking forward to for 2022, the entire year. So this is The Northman, Vin, and how was this?
Yes, so Northman was good. A lot of scale from the director of The Witch, which I was a mild fan of. Director of The Lighthouse, which I was a big fan of. We now have The Northman. Not really a horror movie like the other two. Instead, we get a hardcore Viking fantasy flick with a lot of brutality and a lot of style. I'll go into it in a second. I don't want to talk too much of a summary of this. I'll talk in a second about how straightforward this movie really is. And kind of central to my critique, but I don't want to dive too much into a summary. I think more so if you like Viking and Norse mythology as stylings. Moreover, if you like Robert Eggers as a director and want to support one of the most stylistic directors working today, give this movie a watch. This is definitely a recommendation from me. A pretty stellar cast here. here. Defoe kills it, like usual. He plays a character steeped in oddity, and it's just like, wow, how many weird characters can we get Defoe in before he dies?
Defoe. We are huge Willem Dafoe fans. We really are.
Absolutely.
He kills it in everything.
Yeah. Unexpected to my enjoyment was Nicole Kidman, who I'm usually not a fan of, but she plays the mother and the queen to our lead, and just a very strong performance in a female role and female supporting cast for this. Much like, it couldn't be a different movie than Total Recall, but just a very strong performance from her. And if you don't like Nicole Kidman, I think she may not be breaking the mold too much, but it is good here. It is good.
I would be in that bag.
Yeah.
The not loving Nicole Kidman.
Exactly.
But that's good that she's not only tolerable, it's actually a good performance.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But the big credit goes here to our lead, Alexander Skarsgård. Wow. Both physically and emotionally in this role. Physically, he is a literal beast in this. And wow. He was like born in like 75 or something like that. I don't know how his physique. I don't know. He is jacked.
Yeah, he is jacked.
Oh my god! But like beastly. Like I don't know.
Like classic Viking. Like badass Viking.
Yeah, there is some. It is not Marvel buff. There is a different type of buff to it, and I'm not versed enough in Hollywood physique coaching. But yeah, no, there is something.
Yeah.
His traps are huge. But also emotionally, he brings a lot of emotion in this film and almost a frustration in how simple his character is intellectually as a Viking. So there's really a good diversity there in his performance, and I got to give a lot of credit here. He is a great lead, and I want to see more from him. Certainly a lot better than him and Godzilla vs. Kong.
Okay.
Saving grace. So
I forgot I was in that.
Yeah, I did too. The setting is the year 895 or 895 AD, and that is really sold not only by the look and the feel of the time period, but as well, its deep mysticism and the brutality as well. There's not really magic in this, more so a lot of rituals, a lot of paganism. It's very cool.
I would say that's done pretty accurately too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, especially for Vikings. Some things feel like they come a little bit out of left field, but even with my basic knowledge of Norse myth, Edgar's is putting a lot into the research and the deep cuts into this writing. If I can compare it to some of the sea shanty tales that he incorporates into the horror of the lighthouse, that is the same type of love into the mysticism here and the rituals of this. And again, the product of it is it's selling the time period. It's selling the setting, which is really good. Yeah. Just in the brutality is selling the setting. There is a lot of visceral action here.
We're seeing some Vikings on the screen.
Oh, yeah. You are definitely seeing some Vikings on the screen. And it really shows how villainous the Vikings were at the time. These, some sequences are very intense. What's a tiny bit of a shame is that the plot steps up or I should say sidesteps this a little bit, this brutality, because it's kind of hard in the beginning to root for these characters with how villainous they are.
They're
and how
so brutal.
Yeah. But that was also more the interesting part for me because I was almost excited. How do we craft a story? It does get sidesteps a bit for more of a straightforward story, but nonetheless, there are some sequences in the beginning that are stunning for that reason and how brutal they are. Very much a boys' watch, very much what you want out of a period piece as well.
Yeah, I was almost getting nervous when this came out. Like I said, I was excited for it. It was one of my favorite films or most anticipated films for me. But it was like, okay, well, we had the Viking show already that had multiple seasons and did pretty well. We had Game of Thrones. We've just been seeing swords on screen a lot more lately.
For
I wonder if we were getting watered down a little bit. But it's got enough punch and enough realism where it really is standing on its own and doing a good job of it.
Absolutely. Where I want, again, why I wanted to maybe avoid more of a traditional summary of this film and more so just lean into the stylings. Unfortunately, the plot really does unfold a bit blandly. The actual events and the conflict of this movie, sadly, are just a bit generic. Pacing as well gets hurt here because there are plot points our main character has that he can get what he wants. The character can achieve the goal, and then just constantly there's just something in the way, there's a road bump, and overall, instead of the goals of our characters developing, we get frustration and road bumps to what feels like padding for the story, honestly. It just unfolds very predictably. And again, padding is unfortunately where I come off with it, because there's moments that I don't understand where our characters aren't acting a certain way if this truly is their goal of what they want to achieve.
Right.
But it just kind of gets padded out. I think, unfortunately for me, watching this and looking at the script and the plot critically, it just comes off as distractions. You know what I mean?
Wasted.
Yeah, it could have been
Total
fat
that can be cut.
Yeah. Skarsgård can get what he wants probably 30 minutes earlier before the conclusion.
Oh, okay.
So a logic wise, not the best. Like I said, ultimately it boils down to wanting more time for that styling in the world, and I would say luckily visual storytelling is absolutely Eggers' strong suit as a director. So where for most this styling of the rituals and the brutality would just be window dressing, here it has a lot more substance. A lot of care is put into subtle nods to Norse mythos, and even if it doesn't have a direct impact on the story, there is substance there, and I think for history buffs, I think for people wanting the period piece out of this, that is going to hit in a big way, even if it's a little bit more of a generic through line. So, for instance, our main guy has dreams. Skarsgård, I actually forget the character's name, something with an A. Alrund? Amleth. He has these dreams of his family tree constantly, and the imagery ties into North myths around Yggdrasil and the world tree. And this is not even something our character as a Viking knows a word for because of his storyline, but we're constantly seeing him playing a larger role in the fates, playing a larger role in the Norse myth that he may have a story named after him one day, so there is substance to the style, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I can see how, like you said, some audience really might like that, because if they do a good job at setting up the world and if people are really enjoying it, I can see how more content would be nice, but at the same time, it is distracting from the main story,
exactly.
say.
Yeah. And in this, it is right in line with one that we covered, which was Green Knight, that there was more so minimalist storytelling, but all of it was visual storytelling. Right. This, in a very similar way, fits into that.
So could you narrow it down to saying, done very well, but not necessary?
Done very well and saves what's otherwise what would be otherwise generic. I think that care of style really, thankfully, saves this film.
Okay, puts on another level.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, I almost like I said, I'm especially for the intelligence level of Vikings, I almost wish it kind of leaned into minimalism and storytelling with less given to the audience. Match the intelligence of the Vikings and rely more on that visual storytelling. Let's maybe have them be idiots and almost silent and not talking a lot, and it's all just them interacting with this this ritual of the world and this primalness that they have in their war efforts. That's a preference, but much like The Lighthouse, I would say there is a lot there done to keep your eye on the screen and make sure that you are not looking anywhere else, which is, I think, a good mark of a film. So,
absolutely, agree completely.
Like The Lighthouse as well, I do have to say there is definitely some crass humor here. There are some fart jokes. There is perverted Willem Dafoe. And I mean, I think it's still relatively in place. With Lighthouse, it was two guys, they're trapped on an island. Yeah, with this, it's just a bunch of bros. The Vikings are definitely all amoral bros that they'll go from slaughtering to partying.
Yeah,
and,
that's how it was.
Yeah, exactly. So it is appropriate, but I did not expect to hear a fart sound effect. So just gotta note it for sure. It's kind of funny, but it's also, I don't know, it's shocking. Maybe I don't know. I guess fart jokes are coming back. So.
Yeah, from the director single-handedly bringing them back.
Yeah, single-handedly. But I think this is a very solid watch. I would say, if anything, for visually alone, so much care is put into landscape shots and the harsh feel of the time. The brutality, again, I can't stress enough, is there. The rituals, so much ritual is in this film, so much mysticism, and it's like, man, this isn't like what you would see of like a Knight Templar or Catholicism. This is like paganism, and it's weird and scary. In that way, Robert is leaning on his horror roots to still give a lot of unique feels to his stories.
And totally appropriate. 100%
Yeah, exactly.
appropriate. Yeah.
Exactly. So I want to give a credit to that and how he produces, the director, how he produces style that makes substance, even though the through line may be just a little bit more generic than I would have liked. We're going to go ahead and give The Northman a 74.
Ooh, okay, 74.
Yeah, this was maybe not the most exciting variance in the scores this week, but a very solid week of movie.
Very solid.
This was the life vest after the last 2 weeks.
Last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was drowning. I was dead for like a solid minute.
Oh man, 74 though, great score for The Northman.
Yeah,
I can't wait, and I can only assume definitely like a theater watch. You would definitely recommend seeing it in the theater.
You read my mind,
Okay.
and for you specifically as well. Sound wise, so good.
Okay,
so good.
Cool. And like you said, just the beauty of it probably, and immerse yourself a little bit. Okay.
Exactly.
Good to note there. Okay, so that's The Northman with a 74. Now we have the much anticipated. I don't know.
I think this has a surprising amount of hype. I didn't realize how many people were
internet
hyped for this.
hype, and I'm seeing article after article and a lot of Nick Cage stuff and this and that. I don't know if necessarily the seats are being filled, if the audience are necessarily in the seats watching.
Oh, yeah.
But it is really like online a lot and being talked about. We have the new movie, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and this is Nick Cage playing Nick Cage, and what really are we getting here? Is this an exact replica? Is it a fictionalized Nick Cage? What is this? That's
a good way to intro it. The Nick Cage movie we have all been waiting for, where Nick Cage plays Nick Cage. That's the intro. I would say, well, sort of. It is.
Okay.
There's definitely a character to him here. He, for instance, has a fictional family, and more than anything, he's really cranked up to 11 here as Nick Cage. His character is, man, it is self-referential Nick Cage. It's interesting. In the beginning, up to the release of this film, I was actually following this a little bit because I found out that he may have not liked the portrayal, or he felt that it was a cartoonish portrayal of him.
We had talked about it. Yeah, we went through this.
I think it was on the Pig Review or something like that. Or
that. And I even think like off air kind of, we were discussing, because it was kind of upsetting, where it's just like you had said where there was an interview with him or something where he was just like, he wasn't thrilled about the role, but you said he felt like he needed to for like fans, and it was being like asked for. Was that still the case?
I don't know. I think he's definitely having fun with this.
Okay.
I would just say this is definitely more so a cartoonish depiction of Nick Cage than we're getting a deep dive. And listen, it is a comedy at the end of the day, so
right.
I would say that's fine. Part of that amplification includes an inner Nick, if you will. I believe his name is Nicky. That has a CGI de-aging face that is a little bit of a nightmare. It is like a step back from what we saw in the Star Wars. It definitely doesn't have Disney money behind it, but this de-aging is like, ooh, a little rough. But he acts as a narcissistic voice in his head. He has a leather jacket, a toothpick, and he probably looks at something out of like Nick Cage's earlier films, like Wild at Heart or something like that.
Right, like late 80s or 90s.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because it's this blown out, almost inner voice of expectation of who Nick Cage is supposed to be, and it also is kind of his chaotic devil on the shoulder that pretty much forces him into all these bad movies. So this character is almost an explanation, an apology of some of those bad movies. He's him thinking he has to do blockbusters and whatnot. I would say if the CGI did not look terrible, I would enjoy it a lot more. But
it was taking you out of it.
Yeah, it just looks bad.
Okay, all right.
Like I said, it is probably. I don't know. What was the first thing? Was Tron Legacy the first to do that de-aging tech?
I would say Tron is actually that was a good one. Tron is pretty early on.
Yeah.
It's 2010.
Yeah. Maybe doesn't look as bad as Jeff Bridges and Tron, but...
Or does it look the same? But the problem is it should be better because it's been 10 years.
Oh, for sure.
Later,
Yeah. The critique here is that it definitely doesn't look industry standard.
Right, okay.
And at that point, I honestly would have rather just like old Nick Cage in a leather jacket because I'm sure he could ham it up the same way,
Right.
Yeah, so not exactly true to life. What I will say is true to life is Cage's ability or rather inability to turn down a job. He's just a working man, and that really is his character here. This lands Nick in taking $1 million birthday gigs and working with the CIA and plenty of ammo for comedic setups in this film. I think the CIA side with Tiffany Haddish is definitely what holds this movie back a bit. Thankfully, it's definitely not everything to this film, but there's a little bit more of a generic comedy kind of spine to it,
Nothing special, nothing really doing anything that's exciting.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't mind Tiffany Haddish as an actress, but between this and even The Card Counter, which was semi-recently.
That did not do well.
Yeah, not the best. She is funny in ways, but the CIA plot thread. It just feels like they're just trying to put this movie on wheels a little bit, on tracks, where I think it could really go in a lot of different directions and be a lot more creative for it. So. Oddly enough, maybe a theme this week is there is a big family element to this plot, which I didn't expect from a rated R comedy film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This film is filled with curses and gun violence and whatnot and drug use. But I mean, it is dropping F-bombs left and right, but we focus on Nick reconnecting with his fictional daughter. It's a little odd. Again, not expecting Feel Good to be a description of this rated R film. It's just a little odd.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it, but that's not exactly bad. Just how it wasn't really a bad thing with Everything Everywhere. Mm-hmm. I think in this one, unfortunately, like the CIA plot thread in this, kind of keeps him on tracks, you know what I mean? I think this film could do a lot more if it didn't have this through line of creating a normal film. You know what I mean?
Okay, sure.
It's a love letter to Nick Cage. It is a love letter to lovers of his movies, and even, like I'll get into a second, lovers of the movie industry in general. There's a lot of deep cuts for just pop culture fans and whatnot, even beyond Nick Cage's films.
Right, okay.
There's a lot of
weeds
enjoyment
a little
there.
bit.
Into movie industry stuff and kind of some industry jokes and whatnot, production jokes.
Okay.
Which I think were good, but again, it's shackled because we have to have a little bit of an action plot through it, and then as well we're tying this into his daughter, and it's just like okay,
Okay, all right,
yeah. So not the worst thing in the world, but it's kind of the shame of what could have been.
Okay.
Like I said, the comedy is chock full of callbacks to his career, even some good deep cuts. There is a shout out to Mandy, which I was really happy to see because I was expecting, Face Off, Con Air, ridiculous, Gone in 60 Seconds. Oh, sure. But I would say almost every single movie he has done is checked. There was a box checked here.
Every single movie he's done quite a bit.
There's a lot.
6 or 7 a year, it seems like he's doing.
So, it checks a lot of boxes, and I would say especially for your friend group, folks at home, if you participate in maybe maybe watching the So Bad It's Good style of Nick Cage movies, this is really great because it has the deep cuts of maybe, God, why can't I think of the Curse of the Vampire? Is it Curse of the Vampire?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's Curse of the Vampire.
But even like things like Mandy and whatnot, nowhere near the public eye for Nick Cage, but they're still making these call outs to it, which is very enjoyable. Like this
for the average viewer, okay, it's just part of the movie, but for some of those Nick Cage fans or that Caginess, it's there for them.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point because normally I wouldn't give credit to something so Easter eggy or even at worst like a Deadpool kind of pop culture reference.
But this is the point.
Exactly. It is the whole point. You know what I mean? Yeah. He is playing himself. So we also, it's enjoyable because we have characters acting around Nick Cage like fans of Nick Cage.
Right.
So there's an easy way for the audience to step in to almost, fanning out over Nick Cage, which is, if you got the opportunity to hang with him, you'd probably be talking about all the movies he's done as well, which is great. Yeah. Acting wise, I would say besides Cage, Pedro Pascal is really great in this. He's got, I would say in the theater, he got some of the few really vocal laughs, both out of me and in the theater that I was watching this in. And I just love seeing him in more comedic roles. Maybe he'll be cracking jokes Mando season 3 with Grogu,
Nice.
Yeah. But he's really good. He's really good at this. He's I don't know what it is. He's not afraid to make himself look like an idiot, and he still just looks like cool as ice, And he plays like this cartel lord in this, so it's a good match, and both are equally chaotic because this very much is about the buddy-buddy relationship between the two, Nick Cage and this character.
Okay.
So, but overall, I really don't have much more to say. This movie is a breezy hour and 47, and too much of a deep dive will spoil some of the surprises in this, especially for folks at home that are Nick Cage fans. I mean, this kind of Easter eggy jokes, I mean, that really is the enjoyment of the film.
Right.
So I don't want to dive in too much. If you like Nick Cage, this is definitely a solid watch for you, especially if you are an appreciator of his manic energy on screen. And moreover, I think this gets an above average watch for me because of the movie lover quality to it. It is a movie for movie lovers.
It added something to it.
Yeah,
very cool.
So we're going to go ahead and give The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent a 65.
A 65, okay.
Yeah, solid.
Yeah, that's pretty. It is. That's like 65. That is a good movie.
Absolutely.
That's a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
All right, 65%, Vin. So
well above average and worth your time.
Very good, very good. I was playing coy a little bit. I have a Tommy Two Shoes.
Oh my God!
I didn't tell you I saw this movie.
You did not.
No, I saw.
I was expecting the Northman, especially.
Oh, were you something?
I really was.
Nope. Didn't see that. I foregone the Northman to see The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent a couple days ago. Let me say. It was so good to be sitting in a movie again and laughing with the other people in the movie. And it was, if you're not the biggest Nick Cage fan, but I mean, everyone knows who Nick Cage is.
Sure.
This is still a good movie. I will tell you straight up, I really, really like this movie.
Good.
I was surprised with how much I liked it. It was actually funny, and the funny was funny.
Yeah.
Just a couple of things. One, his kind of Nicky personality, the devil on his shoulder. Yeah. The face was a little rough. I didn't think too much of it, though.
Oh, really? Okay.
And because what it came down to was, because it's a comedy.
Yeah.
And as I was like, all right, watching comedy, I kind of like it. It's funny. Mm-hmm. I do take your point of like, why don't you just use normal Nick Cage and put him in a leather jacket.
But he got the point across that it's like this moral inner voice.
It didn't bother me too much.
Yeah.
I really have to say, folks, for me, this was actually a very funny comedy. I really enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. My thing where it slowed down and it put the brakes on a little bit, the family aspect didn't bother me too much.
Okay.
I didn't mind it. I thought some points was very funny. I loved the actress that plays his wife. I love her.
Oh yeah, she
love
was
her.
Good.
She's in the show, the Amazon show Catastrophe, which is hilarious. Mm-hmm. So she was great. I thought the daughter was fine, but the daughter aspect of it, I didn't mind too much. I think the movie was trying to be serious in moments where I wish it cut out the seriousness and just more comedy. Oddly enough, I had the opposite thing with you with Pedro Pascal.
Oh,
where He was okay. He was funny sometimes, was fine. I found that me and my audience in the theater, at least, what I was enjoying it with, was very heavy laughs with Nick Cage.
Sure.
Not a lot of laughs coming with Pedro. To the fact of, when the movie was serious, like I said, it was failing except for Nick Cage. Nick Cage did serious and emotion pretty damn well. Everyone else I didn't really care to see, and I just thought I was watching some scenes where it's just like, this isn't really all that serious, but it missed opportunities for funny.
Sure.
I would say there were 3 to 4 times in the movie where it's just like, there could be some really good laughs right here, out loud laughs that I think are just not happening. So I think it was dropping the ball in some comedy, and when it was serious with Nick Cage, that's when it was really good.
Yeah.
I thought he played emotion really well, actually, and it went over well. And the laughs, I got to tell you, it was laughing out loud multiple times. Nick Cage was great in this. I thought the acting, I really did. I found it hilarious. I was surprised with how much of a comedy it was and was happy to see it. And again, I don't know, even if you're not the biggest Nick Cage person, which we kind of are a little bit.
For sure.
But
I think there is enjoyment.
I think this is straight up a funny comedy. It's a funny comedy, and he does, I mean, right off the bat, he had me kind of laughing a little bit. And like, it really was. I mean, every few minutes, there was something to really be smiling, if not laughing out loud about, actually. So I enjoyed it, to the fact of, I was really debating of giving this 2 shoes and one of them laced.
Wow.
I'm that close. Because if a Tommy 2 shoes with a full 2 shoes with both shoe laces tied, if that's your 90s.
I love the explanation
if
so much.
If that's your 95, it's like, that's crazy. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
You know, I gave the latest Bond 2 shoes, one tie.
Yep.
And I would say in the moments where it's being serious, where they should drop it and really just stick with the laughs, if they were going with more laughs and didn't put the brakes on so much, I would get that. But I got to say, this is very easily for me a solid 2 Tommy 2 shoes.
Wonderful.
I was surprised at that much.
Absolutely. and talk about a feather in the cap in this film, if it is able to, is very clearly a fan film. If it's able to transcend that and be just a good comedy, that's a good accolade.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And more of all, Nick Cage, I didn't find cringeworthy. I found him so enjoyable to watch.
Good. Completely. Yeah, I think all the way through he maintains it. He's and even when he's trying to be more laid back, he's still like 100% Nick Cage.
You're right, but it just falls flat sometimes. The CIA stuff and everything like that. For sure, not a perfect comedy.
The plot comes off a little bit more safe than than I would have expected for such a wild film.
I would say safe is pretty accurate.
Yeah. A solid comedy. I'm glad you enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, I think if you want to laugh.
Like always, a legit surprise.
I really was excited to surprise you with that one. I figure we're running along anyway. Why not?
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. Why not?
But awesome, Vin. Vin, we thank you so much for watching these movies. It was a great week.
Oh, yes.
Do you have anything else to add, or are we going to roll credits here?
No, I think that's good. A meaty week. Definitely all solid across the board. Like I said, maybe not much variance here, but that is not a mark. You have almost nearly every one of these films, I would say, sit down and watch this week while you wait for the next episode.
Awesome, Vin. Thank you so much for stopping by and giving these ratings here. For folks at home, we're going to run it through one more time. We have Total Recall with a 79%, The Big Lebowski with a 69%, Everything Everywhere All at Once with a 77%, The Northman with a 74%, and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent with a 65%. Again, we thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or if you'd just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you received from us. You'll get a producer mention on the next podcast episode, too. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast.